allowed for each question to be asked. Time limits, can you hear me?
No,
Oh,
not a
you
word.
can't hear me.
Let's do this.
Let's move this. Let's move this way. Look at this.
Overtime at all.
Right?
Got it. Workman's comp?
You're going to actually have to just go back.
Hey, listen.
All right, I've never had someone tell me that my voice was too quiet. I am so. So, if need be, times limit will be observed, but otherwise we'll let it go. Attendees are expected to act in a respectful manner. The moderator will have responsibility to enforce any time limits if need be. The audience may ask questions, but statements from the audience are not permitted at this time. We're looking for questions because what we're looking for is we're looking for information to understand the budget. And then in order for everyone to hear the questions and answers, please refrain from having conversations in the audience. So, voters and Windsor CT votes for putting this presentation, for putting the community forum together with the town, because it helps us disseminate the information. Now, if there aren't any other presenters, did everybody get to hear me finally now? Cool. Okay, which one of you would like to go first?
I will kick it off.
You got it.
Thank you, Agnes. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I will start off with an overview and then hand it off to Dr. Hill, and then if I followed the instructions correctly, then any questions, correct?
Yeah,
All right. We'll see. So, thank you very much again for coming out. The council's approved budget is essentially a maintenance budget. It maintains general government services, it continues investments in our neighborhood roads, our sidewalks and facilities. It also increases the financial support for our ambulance services, which is based upon a third-party study and report that was done several years ago in terms of what town. It certainly has been a challenging budget season, as this budget incorporates the and we're being also challenged by the inflationary pressures on everything from utilities, software contracts, cybersecurity, and health insurance. Many of those are the same things that we each feel in our household as well. Talk a little bit about revenue. In Connecticut, very few, or towns have very few ways of raising revenues. We're heavily dependent upon real estate taxes to pay for the services that our residents need and use. So like all towns in Connecticut, our primary source of revenue is property tax on real estate, both residential as well as commercial, business property and equipment. When you look at other states, they have the ability to raise local municipalities to do that, so our revenues are not as diversified as that. Approximately $12.9 million in the form of school aid. As a side note, we're receiving the same amount of money in state school aid at $12.9 million, and certainly inflation, or to meet other emerging needs in that time frame. We've also lost in the media that corporations are asking folks to return back to the office. That is happening to some extent here in the region. So, unfortunately, and all of the business owners, that $3 million in order to keep this level of services for the cost of doing business. Some folks have raised the question, well, this increase is greater than example, health insurance for our retirees and for our active employees is going up 16. And just as an example, we hire over 100 part-time, 17% in the last for us when we're hiring both full-time as well as part-time individuals. And another tidbit, which I'm sure you folks would love to go home and talk to your partners and be able to tell them how much in the past 5 years. It's gone up 35% in the last 5 years budget. I'm going to stop at this point in time and let Dr. Hill go through, and that way we can save as much time as possible for questions.
Thank you very much. What Peter said, as he already stated, fits the school system. But I'll take folks through is, again, I see we face the past 5 years. So I always start doing budgets as long as I'm working in schools. The business of the school system is to educate the young people of that community. The classroom. So that's where all cuts, keeping that in mind, that's how I do my budget, and that's where cuts will come first. When I get ready to do the budget, we start in the fall. Myself and my chief of operations, Ms. Danielle Batchelder, is sitting here in the front, and we look at what does it cost just to open the doors, turn the lights on, keep the district going the very next year. Always a percentage much higher than any percentage that you ever get to see. The board doesn't get to see that percentage because Danielle and I will cuts. I want people to understand that before I go to the board in January and present. So I presented in January this year, and the proposed budget percentage was 6.88%. This was primarily, as you can see in the documentation, pay those contracts, and we have the requisite benefits and insurance that go along with the employees as well. We have to get the kids to and from school. The buses need fuel. We need to keep the schools to approve the budget, but with a 1% cut. So, right, you always expect when you do a budget, or should expect that there are going to be potential cuts. So that's what we had ready. So we cut the 1%, which came to approximately $862,000. There would not be filling of positions that were open during the time of the budget. So if people had left, resigned, whatever the case may be, from January and going to fill at all, moving forward into the next fiscal year, so those were savings. And we could calculate those savings. For people in town was to cut the Smart Start portion of our early childhood program. Of course, like many grants, began to diminish over the years, so you had to make a cut. So I made the cut there. And I know it wasn't, and you did a pretty good job, I believe, if not everything's happened. Okay, so you can see also here it shoots the difference. This current budget, or nothing new that we're trying to accomplish. We're just trying to.
Questions? Should we ready for questions? Yes, gentlemen.
Have any employees been given a raise this year? So why do they keep getting a raise when Windsor education system supplies good teaching?
So I'm going to give you, I've never met you. I'm Dr. Hill. I've been in the town since 2000. And I know you're talking about the Alliance District designation, all those things, and moved here on purpose after working here for 4 years. Graduated from the school system. The last one, this past June, just picked up from a first year of college in Boston. Knew if you actually went to a good school or not. Now we have so much political, our kids graduate every year. They go off to every single tier of college, graduate at every level. They earn postgraduate degrees, doctorate degrees. That's not an anomaly again. I care less what any one of those labels say. Public schools produces. I moved here after working in these schools for 4 years, so I got a good snapshot. I could care less about the labels. And now the business side, if Windsor really wants to get rid of the
Thank you, sir. Another question? Yes. No?
You don't have
Thank
to, you don't have to give up, you don't have to give that.
Oh, you don't have to do that, okay, just your name.
Windsor Jameson, and I'm a Windsor. And I understand they're no longer gonna be offering the preschool program for this coming fall.
Coach can explain precisely
Okay.
what's happening with the preschool program.
Okay.
All right, so the programs that have been cut are child or their grandson does not require services per his or her IEP. However, if any of our students who are currently in preschool 3 or 4 and do have an IEP, so special speech, social, emotional, whatever services they require, they will have. That is not being cut. The only thing that we're cutting is our preschool program that was for our general.
Operational goal helps.
Yes, so we do have a plan. Big part was the peer integration.
Yes.
So we will have our preschool students who qualify for preschool spend time during specials, recess with our kindergarten students. So they was a little older, and now that we have kindergarten students who are able to apply for waivers, we will have very close in age, probably less than a year old. So we will provide opportunities for students to interact with them.
But what about providing some type of preschool? Because preschool is very expensive. And to cut it, I would understand. Couldn't it be tapered down where it's not totally wiped out? Allow parents to be able to go at a decreased rate versus just totally wiping it out.
So I understand, and that's when I present cuts. All right, so yes, we had it for 10 years, but it's actually a relatively new thing. I know people as it is, right? Because folks here are all looking at extra expensive homes now that have really high tax rates. And when we look at the numbers, I'm not saying it's not expensive. Again, I have 3 kids. I put them through private preschools. Impacted less than 60 children. And that was just a hit that I cut somewhere. I'm not going to cut teachers in the upper grades moving up. Preschool is nice to have. I believe in it, but cuts come things that you look at, what's really a necessity for us. Victims of the budget.
Thank you. I understand, but I was just saying they need to allow it as
The rest of the K-12.
Yeah.
So they weren't actually paying.
yeah.
Is there another question? Yes, ma'am. Your name?
Here. So the question's directed to, are there ways in which you perhaps look at other operate to see whether we as a town might be able to do things a little differently, like best practices?
I'll start. So thank you for the question. We are certainly well connected through various professional associations on the national and regional level. And the town has roughly 30 to look at the best practices, as you mentioned. We are part of the Capital Region Council of Governments has a purchasing cooperative areas to be able to buy at bulk. And so not only are we looking at, sent off an email to the town managers in Farmington, our emergency rate, for them to join our radio system, which the town residents graciously approved at a referendum, have a service sharing agreement together to, again, learn how they're doing it, maybe save a few minutes so I don't have to recreate the wheel. And so that's what town side, just a few examples.
So before I call my talk about the same thing, Peter talked about the money directly But the superintendents, we talk regularly. We wait for budget season to try to do something. We're like going back and forth all year long. And not reducing just to cut money, but because I'm looking for efficiencies. And I'm like, I share that with other colleagues. Likewise, they give me ideas. I'm like, hey, we can do this. It's somewhere in, Daniel, correct me, is it somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million? Or is it? Yeah, so we pay our taxes. And I have a wife. Bill, I got to explain that. I have a lot more power sitting in these schools than sitting in my house. So I'm pretty savvy at not getting myself in a jam. So that's why I say, I was offended. I heard whispers this winter, oh, there's fluff and extra. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I literally sit there and think about things to cut and tighten to people throughout the year. You want to make sure you're doing your thing, because when budget time comes, if you look like you're slacking, you could be someone sitting there. I have a sheet that's red. Every name and sharpen pencil person is back there with the hat on. I'm ready to sharpen the pencil, because I understand that's what's going to happen. But we're always asking questions, and let me tell you this: we're going to vote, and I have my own wishes, but let's add. We have not in the 5 years I've been here, and we won't. After I leave, I just want to be sure.
Sir, just let's see the end.
Yeah, so we actually
just go ahead.
do utilize services with other districts. If a special ed student in our town in South Windsor is going to the same outplacement facility, we should.
Has there been any, have you looked into solar?
Remember what schools they're on. We have solar arrays, Beach Park, as well as to put Beach Park, as well as to put potentially when this roof gets replaced here and generated versus how much will be consumed. Replaced here and generated versus how much will be consumed. Great, absolutely. So, great, absolutely. So, folk in Alstom at the west end of Day Hill Road, combustion in the west end of Day Hill Road, combustion engineering in Alstom were winding down their businesses and moving elsewhere. But there's also a significant cost related to bringing in 2012 timeframe. Agreed percent of the revenues, and say that those property owners within that district essentially think about combustion engineering's campus. Those public improvements. So it does not paying for public improvements. So it does not paying for any private on-site improvements. It's paying for point in time. There's over improvements. It's paying for point in time. There's over $200 million worth of property value that has been invested in the Great Pond Village area. So we're getting, and it's going to fluctuate. For a number of years, it was pretty flat because it was about 18 to 24 months from the time they start construction. 18 to 24 months for those taxes actually to flow. 18 to 24 months for those taxes actually to flow into the town. They target was completed, and so that brought a significant amount of assessed values that are there. Great Pond preserve their value. All of our residential values went up as well. So you have those two factors, which are generational values, went up as well. So you have those two factors, which are generating that large increase.
What it shows here, it looks like the cost is increasing.
It's not necessarily a cost. Those funds go in water lines that they've built. It's not necessarily a cost. Those funds go in water lines that they've built, and so these funds get used and to pay for that rebate. These funds get used and to pay for that rebate is not equals their debt service. Then the town is not responsible equals their debt service. Then the town is not responsible to make up the difference. There is a legal debts for those roads. I know I'm getting really deep now, but I want to make sure folks understand that debt that is for those roads. Folks understand that debt that is for those roads is not the town of.
Is there another question?
Something I heard from a neighbor, just wanted to verify whether it's true or not, And he mentioned to me that he thought, I don't know where, and he mentioned to me that he thought, I don't know where he heard this himself, but
A shift because of the overall value increased when we did the property state mandated revaluation. Average increased about 51%. Some were significantly higher than that, 70. So you can picture a pie, commercial and industrial properties. Part of that the commercial office, as I mentioned earlier, because they were vacant. And industrial properties did not increase at the pace. So it shifted that pie. So now the has a greater share of the overall tax base. That's what we mean to when we're referring to the shift, where we raise the council then decreases the mill rate, and then there is the increase due to the budgetary.
warehouses in town, are their taxes going up?
They are on a percentage basis. They will not be going up because they did not go up as much as, for example, my wife and I home is on this budget. We'll see approximately a 15% tax increase. Amazon will not see 15%. Their taxes will go up, but I'm going to say it's going to probably be in that 6 to because the value did not appreciate as much as all of our residential homes.
You hoping to live in town when you retire?
I'll have to ask, just like Dr. I will, if I could just that to that point in terms of the cost, the issue of affordability. The town council, that particularly for folks lower and middle income or lower income seniors. The town has always had a tax credit program for those. Last year, the town council increased that benefit level ordinance in a $62,500.
If you do qualify, what is the maximum amount of tax relief you can get?
Let's see. Married couple making with adjusted gross income $5,000 would get a total of $925, and that under the new plan, that married couple can receive $2,500. Get indexed and change each year depending upon what the state of Connecticut follows Social Security increase.
Yes.
Just following up on David's Windsor
We
resident.
don't have all
we get as residential. So for my properties, since my property's going up, that mill rate, even though it's going down, creating a bifurcated mill rate system?
There has, which would, at the local level, allow communities to reduce, again, it's like every class, which is a policy conversation at the town council.
And it's true.
Is in revaluation current time, and so they're hashing through this all, and I believe they had talked about doing a 4-year phase-in of.
All right, Mark?
Yes. I'm somewhat confused when in a project said that that they cannot negotiate or change when over 50% of our taxes go toward the Board of Education. And
Thanks, Mark. So by the town, which is effectively the bylaws of the town manager, patient's budget, when it comes first to the town manager, that has the ability to reduce the budget, the Board of Education's budget, they clarity. I will say that there's other communities where the Board of Education's budget, our town charter, to my that authority given to the town manager.
well, I started to read through the town information to me. It just doesn't make sense. Someone like myself who's never had children, I was unable to. It seems unfair that 60% of it, and in fact, some of the town.
Yes, we have a partnership, if you will, with the Board of Education. We're plowing of the Board of Education does not have to have duplicative crews to do that. We also instead of having 2 risk managers, we have 1 risk manager for the budget. We call that the town support for education.
Education budget go feed part of that?
Not out of their hours in revenue that goes. The Board of Education doesn't need to be raised, rather, by taxes.
That 12, where does that come from, the $12 million?
$12 million grant, and don't ask me to explain that grant. I'm not even sure if Danielle or Dr. Hill could, because it is. We can do this and that too.
So if I'm putting all this together, the Board of Education has more. Is on here. It says the town operating system is 41 million.
It's slightly.
So 84 million for the Board of Education in 2025, for instance. The town operating is 41 million. So the Board of Education has more than 50% of the town taxes we're paying, plus more is on top of that comes. It just seems excess. That's for someone that pays taxes and sees people getting raises that no one else gets.
Thank you. I'll come back to you right after we have Al. Al?
A quick question. How many employees was the more money, but I think the Board of Ed probably has a lot more employees to pay.
200 full-time employees and full-time equivalents, part-time folks that make up full-time equivalents. So
640, and I'm not going to make our certified staff, which means they're under, I know people always talk about going into teaching, millionaires are rich people, but they're So we definitely, a lot more employees in the town, and, you know, not quite.
A few towns in the state that freeze taxes for seniors. Whatever their taxes are at that point are frozen. How'd they do that?
And so, similar to, as I mentioned earlier, you know, budget communities can do that. Again, that is a taxes that are where that on revenue is picked up by other other residents. So, but it is a allowable by under state law. Once upon a time, that are provided. They stopped doing that probably about 11. And so that is another factor. Where some communities had started that and froze that, had gotten some return from the state. Probably found it hard, the conjecture, found it hard to unwind that after they had already put that policy in place to freeze.
And that will allow us to get a lower,
You can rush on down to the town hall, to the tax assessor's office, and I say rush because the deadline is May 15th. And so you, yep, and I would just encourage you, all on the town's website, but I encourage you to give a call to the assessor's office, and that way there they can tell you what information they need. It's basically your tax file, your tax.
your tax plan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yes,
Yeah, question for Dr. Hill.
can't hear you.
The cutting of the early childhood program, how much did we save by doing that? Because early childhood is like
$250,000.
Yes, please.
how much?
Approximately 250,000 of the 862,000.
200,000?
250,000,
Right.
and that was 250 of the 862,000, which
50 for 60 kids? How
I
many
said,
kids
I said
were
at
in
max
that
it would be
preschool?
60.
And so that was related to what else? I mean, that's a lot more than what you would think 60 kids would cost.
Say it again?
Could you just repeat the question?
Yeah, could you read?
So I'm trying to follow.
What Maryland's a lot for just 60 kids. Where does that?
Could you
So-
explain it?
Yeah, it's
Staff now.
well, a program for those 60 kids actually costs $550,000 because we received $300,000 from the state as a grant. When we started it back 9-10 years ago, it took, we were able to fund everything.
We knew that we knew.
Yep, so over the years, everything goes up, so the Board of Ed ended up having to start put money in, and this year, we would have had to put $250,000 for salary and benefits only. That doesn't even incorporate any supplies or materials.
Thank you.
I'm not okay with it because.
No, I didn't say it was okay. I said that
Early
answers the question.
childhood is essential. We have to have everybody reading on grade level by third grade if you want your kids to graduate from high school. You can't get that if they come to school and they don't even know their colors, which is what happens in early childhood.
Marilyn, we're having
Essential.
problems hearing you.
Sorry.
Oh, I heard.
It's essential.
Did you hear it?
Oh, I heard. And I'll just say, just to respond to this, I agree. I fully agree. But I'm going to keep saying, no, we're just being blunt and honest. People, which I never really understood until later in life, but I do understand budgets. And, you know, there's a lot of things I would like to have. As Granddaddy used to say, there are wants to's and got to's. So we all want to have a lot of things, but we got to make sure everyone's happy. And no one's going to be really happy. Because as Marcus said, right, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Mark's like, why am I paying this much for schools? Period. So I'm sure he's not. He's a taxpayer. And he's like, hey, I'm paying all this money for something I don't engage with. I'm crying every day when I park looking at that pickleball court and I can't play yet. And trust me, I'm working my butt off to get to that pickleball court, because I'm like, I don't pay for that, and I want to play on it. I'm not being funny either. I bought my set. But I got to pay this school right here. So,
the preschool reduction correctly. My understanding, it was a lottery, so it wasn't like an open student in Windsor. So if it was a lottery, is that where the 60 comes from? And well, I'll stop here. I'm trying to make sure that I'm clear that it was a lottery, so it wasn't open to all students in Windsor.
if I understand what you're saying, Ms. Mayor, Madam Mayor, I'll explain to, and not, my daughter went to Milo Peck, so you could say, I'm going to put it there if you pay that bill, but ours was lottery, so that's what I said, very few kids all year long, people who were trying, and I get it, because it's really expensive, right, and it wasn't really taking care of a ton of people in the town. It's a small number, important, just where we had to take that hit. Yes, ma'am?
And just another operational question. Families that have been reaching out, are they being pointed? I mean, I didn't, go through the school so I was able to do that. I had that option. But just wanting to make sure, to your point, that families are being pointed to whatever opportunities are available.
They are.
Okay.
They are. Yes.
I'd like to maybe clarify something. Is that with the preschool program, there are preschool speech or cognitive, that's what an IP is called. They have a service that is needed to preschool. Then over and above that, there was families with able-bodied children could apply in the lottery. And if you got picked, then you got to go into the Start Smart program.
And there were only 60 slots.
Smart Start. And that only took 60 people.
Right. And one more thing, we have, because it was a state grant, so we have requirements to look at students who are low income.
Yeah.
We look at students household, so we have to look at these first seats, and then if we have additional seats, then we would randomly select.
Right. So it wasn't like free, it wasn't free pre-K across. It wasn't universal pre-K. Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
The lottery versus how many got selected?
Pardon me, how many?
How many people?
Lottery.
We have usually over 200, 250 applications, and some of our students with special needs with IEP, their IEP for a full day of services, so they get seats first. Low income students, then our ELL students, so we end up with maybe as a 250 applications.
Okay, I hope that's clarified that location. All right, is there another? Yes.
So impact, if there is any, and what would you expect in terms of the budget going forward of the apartments that are being built in town?
The red complex is being constructed in town center. One is being, the one that offers Plaza has a, for tax rebate in terms of taxes. And part of that is related to at a reduced, slightly less than market. So there'll be a tax rebate agreement, rebates back to the developer there. The developer of the apartments that are being constructed across from Jim's Pizza that are not going to be rebated. They will come back to the town. So I will say that but the town council each year can decide how much of those, or the council can say, we're not going to put any of those new revenues into the district fund. We're going to put that.
We thank our town Dr. Terrell Hill for their wonderful presentation. We thank the League of Women Voters and the town residents. If you go online, there is much more information on the budget on the townofwindsorct.com website. There is also 2 calculators. There is also a calculator for car tax. Have I covered that right? I suggest the entire budget has whole bunches of stuff in it. I've always found it fascinating. So one more community forum tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the Senior Center, L.P. Wilson Community Center. Breakfast.